Hello everyone, welcome to the HearthStone Weekly, talking about the top decks, talking about the top cards. So without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Now, this week I'm going to go over the structure of standard deck making. And then I'm going to show you a deck which I just threw together on stream yesterday, and why I threw together in about 5 minutes and why it works. So, first of all, we'll start with a random deck that I have some cards for. That's the key thing. Let's start with, let's see, do a hunter deck. I've already done a hunter deck though. I think for the sake of argument, we'll do a rogue deck. Now, for rogue, there's two types of rogue really. You can go aggression or you can go spell power. Spell power control or aggressive. I already made a spell power control deck, so I think I'll make an aggressive deck. So what does an aggressive deck need? First of all, it needs some burst damage and some very cheap removal. So we can go for the 3 Eviscerate, Shivs, and Backstabs. Next, you need some actual minions to put in. So we put in the 2 most powerful combo ones. And some cheap mid-game removal in Saps. We can fill in the rest later. Now, as for actual cards to start with, well, any aggro deck would love some R&B Cows for getting past Taunt, some Knife Jugglers because they give you extra advantage, and we could go for some Direwolf Alphas. Actually, I only have one. Never mind. Let's see. Beyond that, go for some Raid Leaders because they help boost up your offense quite quickly. And we can try and go for a few more spells to try and power through. Double Head Crack is very good in a sort of aggro spell power type deck. Double Assassinate, it will be required to get past certain things. We'll also be looking for some AoE against other aggro decks. And maybe some Sinister Strikes. Or we could complete out our mid-game with some Senjins, some Violet Teachers, and some Argent Commanders. That's just a very basic deck. Not at all refined, but the actual concept is what's important when it comes to standard deck tech. When you're trying to make a standard deck, if you get the right concept, it'll do well. If you have the wrong concept, then it won't do well. The right concept that isn't refined will at least win about sort of 40% of games, whereas bad concept just won't win games. So that's how you make a decent concept of a deck. I took aggro as deck type. I put in the cheap removal, the cheap minions, the aggressive minions that require you to attack constantly, and I just did it that way. That's the basic aggro. This obviously isn't refined because I just threw it together, and it could be refined to a T and would be a very powerful deck. Some Shadow Steps would be okay in here for the Fires Ringleaders. Maybe some Patient Assassins instead of Assassinates, things like that. Just vary it around when it comes to deck testing, but the important thing is to get a good deck idea first. Now, let's look at a good deck idea that I actually did throw together on stream that did work. I played this about 10 times and I won 8 of those games. Now, this was a mage mid-range deck that a guy on stream asked me to put together. So I'm going to use this as one as a deck tech, a budget deck tech, and 2 as a showcase of how mid-range decks work as a whole. So first things first, we look at the mana curve. The mana curve in mid-range decks usually is very heavy on the 3, 4, and 5 drops. This one is slightly lighter on the 6 drops than most, but very heavy on the 3 and 4 drops. That's mainly because the secrets and removal for mage are pretty much 3 and 4 mana. Now, let's go through the deck, shall we? The first batch is these two, my 1 drops. Arcane Missiles and Mana Worm. They're both designed to control the board early, Mana Worm being one of the most versatile and powerful 1-drops in the game. Between these two and your hero power, you can control the board for 2 to 3 turns before your entire deck comes online. Getting a turn 1 Mana Worm with... If you have a coin and you go turn 1 Mana Worm, turn 2 ping something, coin Arcane Missiles, you can attack the 7 on turn 2 with, if you hero power, coin Arcane Missiles, that's 7 damage total because the Mana Worm gets buffed by both of those spells. It puts on some early aggression, and it is a very good way of putting your opponent on the back foot while you try and get the rest of your mid-range online. Now onto the 3-drops. These are the bridge to your 4-drops, which is where your actual minions come out. Now, all of these spells have something in common. They set you up for your mid-game. Arcane Intellect draws you 2 cards, so you have more options on your 4-drop slot. Cone of Cold entirely shuts down their aggression. If they put a 1 or 2-drop and a 3-drop on the board, it entirely shuts down the aggression and allows you to deal with it more adequately. Frostbolt is very versatile because it's a good removal spell and can also be used to freeze a character, hero, or minion at the end game. Mirror Entity, Mirror Entity and Vaporize are here because they restrict what your opponent can do. If they misplay, it can be a big deal because Vaporize becomes just a 3 mana killer thing. Mirror Entity gets you something which can win you the game, like a Taunt Minion, or I've actually Mirror Entity'd a Core Hound before and I won that game. Onto the 4-drops. 2 Fireballs, 2 Polymorphs, 2 Sengens, 2 Violet Teachers, and 2 Water Elementals. 4-drops are quite heavy in here. Fireballs are mainly designed for burst damage, not for removal, but they can be used for removal if they have to be. But 2 Fireballs to the face is a very good way of ending the game. 2 Polymorphs just gets rid of anything you like. It silences it as well effectively, so it's a very good removal spell. I couldn't imagine running without them. Sengen, Shieldmaster, and Violet Teacher and Water Elemental all serve a similar purpose, to hold down the mid-game. Sengen provides a very solid taunt wall that stops aggression in their tracks, and it also walls some mid-range minions quite effectively. Violet Teacher generates continuous advantage of your many 3-drop spells, and makes Arcane Missiles quite versatile late game, because you play Arcane Missiles, it might kill something, and then you get a 1-1. Just for 1 mana, it's a very good card in this kind of deck. Water Elemental. Water Elemental is the mage mid-range card. Most classes have a mid-range card that is very powerful. In Water Elemental's case, it has absurdly high stats for a 4-drop. 3/6 is a stat total of 9 on a 4-drop. That is 5-drop stats. But its effect is ridiculously good. It can freeze things forever. If they don't get rid of it, it freezes things forever, and it's very good against weapon decks because all you need to do is keep attacking the enemy hero and they will never attack you. Blizzard, the last of this deck's free spells. This is my AoE in the deck. It is very essential. Between this and Cone of Cold, I can stop most aggro decks and allow my mid-game minions to take over the game slowly. The Mage Hero Power also helps out with this because if you Blizzard, you have a turn to Mage Hero Power something, which effectively makes this into deal 2 damage to everything, and then you can ping another thing, and you can kill something with 3 health. It is very versatile in a Mage deck. Now, my 2 6-drops are Argent Commander and Sunwalker. Now, both of these do something crazy when they come down, and they both have Divine Shield. Argent Commander kills something for free. Its Divine Shield soaks up the damage, it has charge, it kills something with 4 health or less. That kills a lot of things, actually. You'd be surprised how many things this thing kills. Late game, for 8 mana with your hero power, it can kill things with 5 health, like Lord of the Arena or Sunwalker without its Divine Shield, things like that. Speaking of Sunwalker, the most resilient taunt minion in the game, 4/5 for 6 with taunt and Divine Shield. The Divine Shield blocks a lot of things. This is very effective against 2 big minions with 4 health, because they can't attack it. It will 2-for-1 them. They need to remove it in some way, and it's very difficult to remove. But anyway, as a mid-range deck, this functions quite similarly to a lot of other mid-range decks. If you look at the actual core, You have Senjin Shieldmaster, Violet Teacher, Argent Commander, Sunwalker. These are the neutral core minions of all mid-range decks. All mid-range decks that are powerful play those 4 cards. Why? Because they're effective and they do something when they enter the field or threaten to do something continuously for cheap. Water Elemental is the mid-range minion for the mage. For shamans, it's Fire Elemental. For warlocks, it can be Dread Infernal. For hunters, it's Savannah Highmane, druids, Druid of Claw, things like that. The mid-range minion, 4 to 6 mana, around there. This is the one for the mage. Water Elemental is very good at its job. And the other core of all mid-range decks is their 1 AoE. In this case, it's Blizzard, but it can be Consecration, it can be Hellfire, Starfall. There's always one, but that's the key. These are the mid-range components. The rest of the deck is just basic control, because you need to hold down your opponent until your last core of the deck comes online and you start to take over the game. But anyway, this has been Jotto. That was my mage deck tech. I have a couple of other decks I would like to show over the next few weeks. I'll be doing budget deck techs and also completed deck techs, which you will see probably in rapid succession. I'll make a budget deck tech, and if I complete the deck, I'll make a full deck tech on it, just sort of to give out a way of doing well with limited cards, and then what that deck should grow into. Something else I'm going to be doing in future when I come up with a new deck is show the extreme budget version of it and show what you can improve in it if it has any epics or legendaries. But anyway, this has been Jotto, signing off.